The Unfinished Dream. A story of Martin Luther King Jr. and America's struggle with its promise. On a warm August afternoon in 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. stepped onto the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. A man with a vision that reached beyond the confines of his time. The crowd stretched before him, a sea of faces. Black and white, young and old, their spirits buoyed by hope and the urgency of change. As he began to speak, his words poured over them like a balm, soothing yet stirring. His now iconic refrain, "I have a dream, see." In that speech, King painted a picture of unity and equality. He dreamed of a nation where his children would be judged not by the color of their skin but by the content of their character. A world where freedom and justice would be as natural as the air they breathed. For many, it was a moment of clarity, a vision so profound that it seemed to touch the soul of the nation. But what King offered was not just inspiration, it was a challenge. A challenge to confront a history stained by slavery, segregation, and systemic oppression, and to turn the promises of the Declaration of Independence into reality for all. Nearly 6 decades later, King's words still echo, yet the dream remains unfinished. The struggles he sought to overcome persist in new forms, their shadows stretching across the American landscape. For many, the progress since King's time feels like a fragile thread, easily frayed by complacency and resistance. In the years following King's assassination, civil rights victories led to legislative milestones: the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, desegregation orders. But these victories, monumental as they were, did not dismantle the deeper systems of inequality. They did not erase the biases etched into the nation's psyche or eliminate the quiet but pervasive barriers that continued to separate lives along racial lines. The unfinished dream manifests in many ways. In America's neighborhoods, schools, and workplaces, racial disparities remain stark. Black families own a fraction of the wealth of their white counterparts. Schools in predominantly black communities often receive less funding, perpetuating cycles of disadvantage. Healthcare outcomes, too, tell a grim story, with Black Americans facing higher rates of maternal mortality, chronic illness, and premature death. And then there is the justice system. For all its promises of fairness, it remains a battleground of inequality. Statistics show Black Americans are more likely to be arrested, convicted, and subjected to harsher sentences than their white peers. High-profile cases like those of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor have laid bare the enduring violence of racial profiling and police brutality. These incidents are not aberrations, they are part of a pattern that King himself feared, a reminder that the dream of justice is often eclipsed by the reality of systemic bias. For older Americans, King's dream carries a personal resonance. Many remember the turbulent days of the civil rights movement, the courage of those who marched in Selma and Birmingham, the anguish of King's assassination in 1968. They lived through the hope of his vision and the heartbreak of his loss. But as they watch the news today, they are struck by an uncomfortable truth. The struggles of the 1960s have not fully disappeared, they have merely evolved. The protests of recent years, sparked by racial violence and economic inequality, echo the marches of King's time. The chants of "Black Lives Matter," or a modern refrain of "We shall overcome." Yet, while the faces in the crowd have grown more diverse, the resistance to change remains eerily familiar. The backlash against progress, the efforts to suppress voting rights, the resurgence of overt white nationalism all serve as stark reminders that the road to equality is far from smooth. But King's dream is not just a lament for what has not been achieved, it is a call to action. It reminds us that progress is not inevitable, it requires effort, courage, and an unwavering commitment to justice. It asks each generation to pick up where the last left off, to confront the challenges of their time with the same resolve King showed in his. In many ways, the dream's unfinished nature is its greatest strength. It pushes us to look beyond our current reality, to imagine a future where justice and equality are not aspirations but facts of life. It challenges us to reckon with the contradictions of a nation that proclaims liberty and justice for all while still struggling to live up to those ideals. For those who lived through King's era, the question looms: how do we ensure his dream does not fade into history? Reduced to a speech replayed on anniversaries but disconnected from the present? The answer lies not in nostalgia but in action. It lies in recognizing that the dream is not just King's, it is ours. It belongs to every person who believes in the possibility of a better America. The story of King and his dream is a story of both hope and struggle. It is a reminder that progress is neither linear nor guaranteed. It is a call to confront the uncomfortable truths of our past and present and to work tirelessly toward the future. King envisioned a future where the dream is no longer a dream but a reality. And so, the dream endures, unfinished but alive, waiting for the day when the promises of equality and justice will no longer be aspirations but lived experiences for all.